The clatter of cutlery in the Bluebird diner barely registered. Alexander Sterling, a man whose name usually echoed in Chicago boardrooms, found himself in a quiet, almost forgotten town, a world away from his usual high-stakes existence, a business trip depositing him into an unexpected stillness he found himself, for a fleeting moment, actually welcoming. The low hum of local chatter, the rhythmic whir of an ancient ceiling fan, the chime of spoon against ceramic. It all coalesced into a surprisingly comforting soundscape, a stark departure from the relentless cacophony and pressure cooker of his Chicago life, a life lived in the rarefied air of skyscrapers and high-stakes negotiations. His coffee, a dark swirl in a heavy mug, seemed to hold no answers, though he stared into its depths as if expecting revelation, a habit born from years of searching for solutions to questions he'd long since consciously abandoned. 25 years. A quarter-century blurred by a relentless tide of deals, acquisitions, and power maneuvers. An empire built, yes, but the foundation felt hollow, haunted by the ghosts of what it had cost, none more persistent, more achingly real, than the specter of Eleanor. Just her name, a whisper in the chambers of his mind, could unleash a torrent of regret, a deep, unquenchable loss that time had failed to erode. She'd vanished, plucked from his life with a terrifying suddenness, leaving no trace, no explanation, merely days after the diamond he'd chosen with such care, such hope, had graced her finger. Theirs was a love story cruelly rewritten, a narrative that should have culminated in shared laughter and whispered promises, now an unsolved enigma, a persistent throb in the otherwise numb landscape of his memory. A flicker of movement at the edge of his vision, a waitress approaching, pad poised, a warm, practiced smile on her lips, jolted him from his reverie. "Can I get you anything else?" Her voice, soft, pleasant, a standard diner query. Alexander began to lift his gaze, a casual dismissal forming on his tongue, but then his world tilted. His breath hitched. On her finger, a ring. Not just any ring. The ring. The very same constellation of diamond and gold he'd given Eleanor, 25 years reduced to a single, impossible, glittering point of light beneath the diner's gentle glow, mocking the chasm of years. He couldn't draw air. His mind, usually a well-oiled machine, stuttered, scrambled, trying to process the impossible. It couldn't be. Yet there it was. Her smile faltered. "Are you okay, sir?" The question barely pierced the roaring in Alexander's ears. His composure, usually a fortress, threatened to crumble. He forced a breath, then another. "That ring." His voice was a strained whisper, a mere thread of sound. "Where did you get that ring?" The waitress, Grace, her name tag proclaimed, blinked, the question clearly a sharp, unexpected deviation from the norm. Her gaze dropped to her hand, then returned to his, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. "Oh, this. It's been in my family for as long as I can remember. My mom gave it to me before she passed away." Each word was a hammer blow against the fragile walls of Alexander's composure. His heart thudded, a frantic drum against his ribs. Possibilities, wild and terrifying, bloomed in the sudden silence. "Your mother. Do you know where she got it?" The urgency in his voice was undeniable, sharper than he'd intended. Grace offered a slight shrug, a gesture of unknowing. "I never knew my mom well. She died when I was young, and my grandmother raised me. All I know is that it was one of the few things she left behind for me." Alexander leaned back, the worn vinyl of the booth creaking beneath him. His mind a vortex. Could this be? This young woman a link to Eleanor? The ring was too distinctive, its design too intimately personal, for it to be a mere coincidence. Had to be the one. But if so, what seismic shifts had occurred in Eleanor's life all those years ago? And how, by what twist of fate, had this woman, no older than 25, come to wear the very emblem of a love he'd believed buried by time and tragedy? His thoughts spun dizzying. Grace, Eleanor's daughter. The notion was a precipice, terrifying and alluring. I see, he managed, the words feeling inadequate, hollow. "I'm sorry for asking. It just looked familiar." Her smile returned, a little more guarded now. "No worries. People ask about it sometimes. It's a bit old-fashioned, I guess. Alexander could only nod, a mechanical gesture. His appetite had vanished, consumed by a ravenous hunger for answers. He paid, the tip overly generous, his mind already leagues away, charting a new, treacherous course. The cool evening air outside was a balm, yet the weight of the discovery settled on his shoulders like a physical burden. That ring. It was the key, the only tangible thread connecting him to Eleanor after a quarter-century of silence. But its presence on Grace's hand. What did it signify? Who was she truly? And what, in God's name, had become of Eleanor? The image of Jack Donovan, the private investigator he'd once employed in a desperate, fruitless search, surfaced from the depths of his memory. Perhaps it was time. Time to reopen a wound he'd tried so hard to cauterize. His fingers, trembling slightly, found his phone, dialed the number he still knew by heart. As it rang, a chilling certainty settled in. His world, so carefully constructed, was on the verge of complete, irrevocable upheaval. Alexander Sterling prowled his spacious, modern office, the glittering Chicago skyline viewed from Millennium Park a cold, indifferent audience to his turmoil. His thoughts, a relentless stampede, refused to be corralled, focusing with laser intensity on the mystery that had clawed its way back from the past. Grace's hand, the ring a brilliant spark against her skin. The image was seared into his brain, each passing hour amplifying the desperate need for truth. A full day had elapsed since his call to Jack Donovan, the investigator whose efforts years ago had dissolved into frustrating dead ends, forcing Alexander into a public posture of acceptance, a private reality of unending search. Now the old wounds were raw again. His desk phone buzzed, a sharp intrusion. He lunged for it. Jack! The anticipation was a tight band around his chest. Alexander, it's me. Jack's voice, deep and steady, a familiar anchor. I've got some initial information for you. It's not much, but it's a start. Go on, Alexander bit out, his grip on the receiver tightening. I looked into the girl. Grace, was it? He's clean. No criminal record, no hidden ties to anything suspicious. Just an ordinary young woman working in the Bluebird diner. But I found something interesting when I dug into her family. Her mother, the mother who passed away when she was young, is listed as Eleanor Vance Williams. Alexander's heart gave a painful lurch. Eleanor. That's her. That's the name she used when we first met. I thought it might be. Jack's tone was somber. But here's where things get strange. There are no official records of Eleanor Vance Williams before about 26 years ago. It's like she just appeared out of nowhere. No birth certificate, no school records, nothing. And right around the time Grace was born, she disappeared again, like she was trying to stay off the radar. A knot formed in Alexander's throat. Eleanor's inherent secrecy, a trait he'd never challenged, loving her too fiercely to probe wounds she clearly wished to keep hidden, now loomed as a monumental regret. If only he'd asked. If only he'd known. He wouldn't be here now, adrift in this labyrinth of half-truths and buried secrets. Do you think Grace could be my daughter? The question, a raw, vulnerable thing, escaped him, laden with a terrifying cocktail of hope and dread. I can't say for sure, Jack's reply was cautious. But the timing lines up. Grace is about 25 years old, which would match up with the time Eleanor disappeared. If she's your daughter, Eleanor kept it from you. But we'll need more proof before we jump to conclusions. The implications sent Alexander's world spinning. His daughter. After 25 years of self-imposed isolation, work his only solace from the gaping wound of Eleanor's loss, the thought of a child, his child, existing unknown to him, was almost too much to bear. I need answers, Jack. His voice was raw. If Grace is my daughter, if Eleanor hid her from me all these years, I need to know why. And I need to know what happened to Eleanor. She disappeared without a trace, and now I find out she's dead. What does it all mean? I'll keep digging, Jack vowed. But there's one more thing. You remember Marcus Thorne, right? The name hit Alexander like a physical blow, his grip on the phone crushing. Marcus Thorne. His nemesis, a man whose singular ambition seemed to be the dismantling of Alexander's every success. Their rivalry had been brutal, a bitter, undeclared war. Years had passed since Thorne had occupied his thoughts. What connection could he possibly have to this? Of course I remember him. Alexander's voice was glacial. What about him? Well, Marcus seems to have crossed paths with Eleanor before she disappeared. I don't have all the details yet, but it looks like he might have been involved in whatever happened to her. It's possible that Eleanor was running from something or someone, and Marcus was part of it. A chill snaked down Alexander's spine. Could it be that simple? That grotesquely, tragically simple? Had Thorne, in his insatiable quest for power, destroyed Eleanor? The disparate pieces began to click into a horrifying, dark mosaic. Find out everything you can about Marcus, Alexander commanded, his voice iron. I want to know what he did, and I want proof. I'll get to work on it, Jack affirmed. But be careful, Alexander. If Marcus really is involved, he's dangerous. He's not the kind of man to leave loose ends. The click of the disconnected line was deafening. Alexander stood amidst the opulent trappings of his success, the city lights of Chicago painting a glittering, indifferent panorama beyond his office window overlooking Millennium Park, but all of it felt like ashes. His empire, his achievements, all rendered fragile, meaningless, by this new, terrifying revelation. If Thorne had harmed Eleanor, had stolen her from him, had kept her hidden, there would be a reckoning. Alexander would ensure it. But first, Grace. The truth about Grace. Was she truly his? And if so, how could he ever unravel the tangled, painful secrets of the past for her? He sank into his chair, the weight of it all immense. The investigation was afoot, but the path to answers was shrouded in shadow. One thing, however, shone with an unbearable clarity. His life was irrevocably altered. The following morning found Alexander still in his office, sleep a forgotten luxury. His mind a relentless churn of possibilities. Grace, his daughter. Eleanor, entangled with Marcus Thorne. The thought of having been a father for a quarter-century, oblivious, was a heavy, suffocating cloak of regret, anger, and bewildering confusion. The buzz of his phone was a jarring summons. Jack. Yes, it's me. Jack's voice again. I found more information, and I think you need to hear it. Go on, Alexander urged, leaning into the phone, every nerve ending alight. I managed to dig deeper into Marcus Thorne's dealings around the time Eleanor disappeared. It wasn't easy, but I found some old connections that suggest Marcus might have been running something much bigger than we thought. I believe he was involved in some illegal activities, and Eleanor got caught up in it. I can't say exactly how, but I'm starting to see a pattern. It looks like Marcus wanted to use Eleanor as leverage against you, possibly to manipulate you into some kind of business deal or to sabotage your reputation. The words sent an icy current through Alexander. Are you saying Marcus had something to do with Eleanor's disappearance? That he might have taken her? It's possible, Jack conceded, his tone carefully neutral. But what's more interesting is what I found about Grace. There's no official birth record tying her to anyone but Eleanor. She was listed as being born in Clearwater Community Hospital under the name Grace Vance Williams. But get this. The date of birth matches up perfectly with when Eleanor left you. Alexander's breath caught. So you're telling me that Grace could very well be my daughter? Yes, Alexander. I think it's highly likely, Jack stated, the confirmation a quiet explosion. Eleanor disappeared right after she got pregnant. She could have been hiding Grace from you, maybe out of fear or maybe because Marcus was threatening her. We don't know yet, but there's a strong chance that Grace is yours. He slumped back, the weight of 25 lost years crashing down. Eleanor pregnant when she left. It cast her sudden departure in a new, heartbreaking light. Yet it also raised a fresh wave of agonizing questions. Why wouldn't she have told me? The words were a raw whisper. Why keep this from me? I loved her. I would have done anything to protect them both. Maybe she was trying to protect you, Jack offered. If Marcus was involved, she could have feared for your safety or for Grace's. We still don't know the full picture, but I think Eleanor was in deeper trouble than we realized. And I'm afraid Marcus might not be done yet. A maelstrom of emotions buffeted Alexander. A fierce, primal need to protect Grace. This stranger who was his flesh and blood surged through him. I need to tell her, he declared, a new resolve hardening his voice. She deserves to know who I am, who her mother really was. You should be careful how you approach her, Jack cautioned. This is going to be a shock. And if Marcus finds out you're digging around in the past, he could try to stop you. I don't care. Alexander's reply was resolute. I've already lost too much time. I can't let her live without knowing the truth. I owe her that much. He ended the call, the Chicago skyline a blur. Telling Grace. There was no turning back from that. She might despise him, might recoil from the truth of his unknowing absence, but the alternative, her continued ignorance, was unbearable. That evening, his car cut through the quieting streets towards the Bluebird Diner, the setting sun bathing Willow Creek, Illinois, in a soft melancholic gold. He parked, took a moment, the impending conversation a colossal weight. This would be one of the hardest things he'd ever done. Inside, Grace moved with an easy efficiency, cleaning up. The jingle of the doorbell brought her head up, a polite, professional smile forming as she recognized him. Back again. You really like our coffee, huh? His own smile was a weak imitation. Actually, I came to talk to you. The shift in his tone, the gravity in his eyes, made her brow furrow. Is everything okay? He indicated an empty booth. Do you have a minute? There's something I need to tell you. She hesitated, then nodded, wiping her hands on her apron before sliding in opposite him. What's going on? He took a fortifying breath. This is going to sound strange, but I need you to hear me out. That ring you wear. It belongs to someone I loved very much. Her name was Eleanor. Her eyes widened, a flicker of something unreadable in their depths. Eleanor. My mother's name was Eleanor. He nodded slowly. I know. I believe your mother was the same Eleanor I was in love with 25 years ago. And I believe that you might be my daughter. The words, once spoken, hung heavy, altering the very air in the small diner. Grace stared, stunned into a silence so profound it seemed to absorb all sound, shock and disbelief warring on her face. My daughter, she finally echoed, the words tentative, unreal. What do you mean? How could you be my father? He leaned in, his voice imbued with a quarter-century of pent-up emotion. I loved your mother. We were going to get married, but then she disappeared without a trace. I've spent years trying to find out what happened to her. And now I find out that you were born right around the time she left. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. But I think you're my daughter, Grace. Her gaze remained locked on his, her mind clearly struggling to absorb the cataclysmic revelation. The ordinary diner, moments before a place of simple routine, now felt like the epicenter of a seismic shift in her existence. Time itself seemed to warp, stretch. Your daughter, she repeated, the concept still an alien landscape. How could that be? My mom she never mentioned you. Not once. Guilt, sharp and familiar, twisted in Alexander's gut. He'd braced for this, for the shock, the pain, but her raw confusion was a fresh wound. I didn't know, he reiterated, his voice gentle. I swear if I had known about you, I would have been there. I would have done everything to be a part of your life. But your mother, she left suddenly. I didn't know she was pregnant. She never gave me the chance. Her head shook, a small, bewildered movement, her fingers tracing the worn edge of her apron. But why? Why wouldn't she have told you? She was my mom. She didn't have any reason to keep something like that a secret, right? He leaned closer, his voice thick with unshed tears. I don't know why, Grace. But I think she was trying to protect you from someone. There's more to this than I realized, and I'm only just starting to put the pieces together. Your mother. She might have been running from something dangerous. Confusion warred with a nascent anger in her eyes. Dangerous? What are you talking about? He sighed, the explanation a heavy burden. Your mother and I were in love. We were going to get married. But I had a business rival, a man named Marcus Thorne. He's a dangerous man, Grace. He and I clashed a lot, and I think he might have done something to your mother, something to make her disappear. She blinked, the name Marcus Thorne an unfamiliar sound, the implications terrifying. Her mother, the quiet, ordinary woman from her grandmother's stories, embroiled in something dark and perilous. It was a narrative that refused to align with the cherished, if fragmented, memories she held. You think this Marcus guy hurt my mom? Her voice trembled. I don't know for sure yet, he admitted, the uncertainty galling. But I have reasons to believe he was involved in her disappearance. And now that I found you, I'm starting to think that maybe she left to protect both of you. Maybe she was trying to keep you safe from him. The diner seemed to shrink, the air growing thick, suffocating. Her carefully constructed understanding of her life, her mother, fractured, then crumbled. A mother who kept such a monumental secret. A stranger claiming to be her father. She shot to her feet, the chair scraping harshly against the linoleum. I need some air, she choked out, already moving towards the door. Grace, wait. Panic clawed at him, but she was gone, bursting out into the cool evening, the sudden chill a shock against her skin. She wrapped her arms around herself, gulping air, trying to steady the wild careening of her thoughts. It was too much, too fast. He followed, stopping a respectful distance away, his own heart aching with her distress. I know this is a lot, his voice was low, steady. And I know it doesn't make sense right now. But I want to get to the truth. I want to know what happened to your mother. And I want to get to know you if you'll let me. Her eyes were squeezed shut, as if to block out the cacophony in her head. A lifetime of wondering about a faceless father. And now this. An answer that spawned a universe of new, more terrifying questions. An eternity seemed to pass before she spoke. Her voice a fragile whisper. I don't know if I can believe this. I understand, he said, his tone gentle. I don't expect you to trust me right away. But I have proof, Grace. I can show you everything. The timelines match up. I was with your mother before she disappeared. She never told me she was pregnant, but if she had, I would have been there for her. And for you. She turned then, her eyes raw and searching, meeting his. An urge to lash out, to deny, warred with a deeper, undeniable pull. Something in his gaze, a profound sorrow, a desperate sincerity, made her hesitate. What kind of proof? The question, though shaky, was an opening. Relief, immense and profound, washed over him. I have photos of your mother and me, letters, and the ring. Her hand flew to her own, to the familiar weight of the ring. Her mother's most precious, perplexing legacy. Now, its mysteries seemed to deepen, to multiply. I'll show you everything, he promised, his voice earnest. I just want a chance to explain, to tell you the truth. She stood, a figure caught between flight and a dawning, fearful curiosity. Then a small, almost imperceptible nod. Her expression remained guarded, but the word was a lifeline. Okay, she breathed. I'll listen. A vast weight seemed to lift from Alexander's shoulders. Not a resolution, not yet, but a beginning. The next day, in his Chicago office overlooking Millennium Park, Alexander laid out the relics of a lost love. Eleanor's letters, their faded ink a testament to shared dreams. Photographs, their smiling faces frozen in a happier time. The few precious mementos of a love he'd thought extinguished. He planned to show them to Grace that evening, tangible anchors in the storm of revelation. But the insistent ring of his phone shattered the quiet. Jack Donovan. Alexander, I've uncovered more about Marcus Thorne. The urgency in Jack's voice was unmistakable. Alexander's pulse quickened. What did you find? Jack's sigh was heavy. I've been digging into Marcus's business dealings during the time Eleanor disappeared. It's worse than we thought. Marcus wasn't just trying to undermine your business. He was involved in some serious criminal activity. Money laundering, blackmail, you name it. He was running operations under the radar, and I think Eleanor got caught up in it somehow. A cold fist clenched in Alexander's gut. Thorne's ruthlessness was legendary, but this delved into a darkness he hadn't fathomed. Do you think Marcus took Eleanor to keep her quiet? Not just that, Jack's voice was grim. There's more. I found a witness, someone who used to work for Marcus. He's willing to testify that Marcus had Eleanor watched and followed for months before she disappeared. It seems like Marcus knew about her relationship with you, and he saw her as a way to get to you. He wanted leverage, Alexander. If he couldn't beat you in business, he was going to break you personally. The revelation was a body blow. Eleanor, a pawn in Thorne's sadistic game. The thought was unbearable. And Grace, he managed, his voice tight with a rising fury. Was she part of Marcus's plan too? I'm not sure, Jack admitted. But it's possible. If Eleanor was pregnant when she disappeared, and Marcus knew about it, he might have used that information against her. It would explain why she never told you about the baby. She was trying to protect your daughter from him. Alexander was on his feet, pacing, a caged animal. Anger, guilt, regret, a toxic brew churning within him. Thorne, responsible for this chasm of lost years, this stolen family. And still out there, a venomous spider spinning his webs. What can we do? The question was a raw demand. We need to stop him. If he did this to Eleanor, if he's been manipulating everything from the shadows, he needs to pay for it. A pause on Jack's end. We're going to need solid evidence to bring him down. The witness is a start, but it's not enough. We need to gather more proof. Documents, records, anything that ties Marcus to Eleanor's disappearance and his criminal dealings. And we need to do it carefully. Marcus is still a powerful man, and if he gets wind of what we're doing, he'll do everything in his power to stop us. His jaw tightened, a grim resolve settling in. I'll do whatever it takes. I won't let him get away with this. Yet, even as the words left his lips, a new, chilling fear took root. If Thorne had targeted Eleanor, what was to prevent him from turning his sights on Grace, now that her existence, her connection to Alexander, was becoming known? I need to protect Grace, he murmured, the thought a sudden, visceral imperative. I was just about to suggest the same thing, Jack affirmed. Keep her close and don't let her out of your sight. If Marcus is as ruthless as we suspect, she could be in danger. He hung up, his mind a battlefield. He had to tell Grace, to warn her. But how to layer this new horror onto the already staggering revelation of his paternity? That evening, as Grace arrived at his penthouse on Lakeshore Drive, Alexander fought for an outward calm. His smile was strained, his welcome hesitant. She too was guarded, the space between them fraught with unspoken questions. I'm glad you came, he began, the inadequacy of the words palpable. I know this has been a lot to take in. She nodded slowly, her gaze distant. Yeah, I still don't really know what to think. It's hard to wrap my head around all of this. I understand. His voice was soft. But there's something else you need to know, something about Marcus Thorne. Her brow knitted. Marcus Thorne. Who was that? He took a deep breath, bracing himself. He's a man I had business dealings with a long time ago. But he's more than that. I have reason to believe that he's the reason your mother disappeared. He may have been involved in something criminal, and she got caught up in it. Her eyes widened, disbelief etched on her features. What? You think? You think he did something to my mom? I don't know for sure, he admitted, his own voice tight with controlled fury. But I'm going to find out. And I need you to be careful. If he finds out who you are, you could be in danger too. She shook her head, the world tilting again. This doesn't make any sense. Why would someone go after my mom like that? Because Marcus saw her as a way to hurt me, Alexander explained, the bitter truth acrid on his tongue. And if he knows about you, he might try to do the same thing. She stared, the layers of deceit, of hidden dangers, pressing in on her. Her life once simple, now a complex, terrifying web. What do we do now? Her voice was barely a whisper. He reached across the expanse of the table, his hand covering hers, a gesture of solidarity, of protection. We stick together. I'm going to make sure nothing happens to you, Grace. I've lost too much already. I won't lose you too. The air in Alexander's penthouse on Lakeshore Drive crackled with unspoken anxieties, the weight of recent revelations pressing down on both father and newfound daughter. Marcus Thorne. The name was a shadow looming over their fragile, nascent connection, a promise of perils yet to come. Alexander knew Thorne. The man wouldn't let his past be unearthed without a vicious fight. Protecting Grace was paramount, yet confronting Thorne felt inevitable, a collision course set years ago. We need a plan, Alexander finally voiced, shattering the tense quiet. I can't just sit around and wait for him to make the next move. We need to gather more evidence, something that will expose him completely. Grace, still reeling, offered a slow nod. But what about me? What am I supposed to do? His protective instincts roared. You need to stay safe, he stated firmly. Marcus doesn't know about you yet, as far as we can tell. But if he finds out, you could become his next target. I need you to be careful, to keep a low profile until we can figure this out. But a new fire glinted in Grace's eyes, banishing some of the fear. I'm not going to just sit around and do nothing. This is about my mom too. I need to know what happened to her. And if this Marcus guy is responsible, then I want to help take him down. A surge of pride, mingled with a fresh wave of apprehension, washed over him. Eleanor's strength, her spirit, lived on in this young woman. I get it, he conceded, his voice softening. You have every right to be involved. But we have to be smart about this. We're dealing with a dangerous man. She crossed her arms, a flicker of frustration in her posture, yet an understanding of the stakes in her gaze. Okay, so what's the plan? How do we find the evidence we need? He ran a hand through his hair, his mind already sifting through possibilities. Jack is already working on gathering more information. He's looking into Marcus's business dealings, trying to find anything that links him to criminal activity. We need solid proof that ties him to Eleanor's disappearance. And if we can get that, we'll have enough to expose him publicly. But where does that leave me? She pressed. I don't want to be sidelined. He considered her, the risks, her undeniable right to be involved. You can help. There are records, files. Marcus is careful, but he's not invincible. I'm going to need access to some of his properties, places where I believe he kept his dealings hidden. If we can find anything there, it might be the key to bringing him down. An eyebrow arched. Are you asking me to break into places with you? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Not exactly. But I might need your help getting inside without raising suspicion. A small, disbelieving laugh escaped her. So what, you think I can just stroll into one of his offices? Not exactly, he clarified. But Marcus has people working for him who might not be as loyal as he thinks. If we can find someone willing to help us, we can get what we need without having to kick down any doors. She mulled it over, the initial shock giving way to a steely resolve. Okay, I'm in. What's next? Relief and trepidation warred within him. He couldn't shield her entirely. This was her battle too. That's where Jack comes in, Alexander laid out. He's following a lead on one of Marcus's former associates, someone who might be willing to talk. If we can convince him to cooperate, we'll have a way in. The chime of the doorbell was a sudden, sharp punctuation to his words. Grace jumped, her nerves frayed. Alexander moved to the door, peered through the peephole, then opened it to admit Jack Donovan, his expression grave. "I've got something," Jack announced, his voice low, urgent. "What did you find?" Alexander gestured him in. Jack settled at the table, producing a folder. "I've been tracking down one of Marcus's old business partners, Walter Fisher. He was involved in some of Marcus's more questionable deals, and I think he might be our way in." Alexander scanned the documents. "Do you think he'll talk?" Jack nodded. "He's been out of the game for a while. He had a falling out with Marcus years ago, and from what I've heard, he's not too keen on keeping Marcus's secrets anymore. If we approach him the right way, I think we can get him to cooperate." Grace, a silent observer until now, leaned forward. "How do we approach him? What do we say?" Jack's gaze softened as he met hers. "We offer him protection. If he helps us, we'll make sure Marcus can't retaliate. And in return, he gives us everything he knows. Records, transactions, anything that ties Marcus to illegal activities." The plan, audacious and fraught with peril, began to take shape. It was their best, perhaps only shot at dismantling Thorne's empire. "Let's do it," Alexander declared, his voice firm. "We'll meet with Fisher, get the information, and use it to bring Marcus down. This ends now." Grace looked from her father to the investigator, a new, fierce determination hardening her features. "I'm ready," she affirmed. "Whatever it takes." Alexander's heart swelled. Eleanor's daughter indeed. Together, they would make Marcus Thorne answer for his sins. A biting wind whipped through the desolate streets as Alexander and Grace sat in the parked car, a few blocks from an abandoned warehouse on the industrial fringe of South Chicago. It was the kind of forgotten, shadowy place where illicit dealings thrived under a cloak of anonymity. Inside, Walter Fisher, Thorne's ex-associate, awaited them. The plan was stark: get Fisher to talk, secure the evidence, and dismantle Thorne. But the air in the car was thick with an almost palpable tension. Alexander felt it coiling in his gut. Too much hinged on this meeting. Too many variables remained dangerously unknown. Fisher could balk. Thorne could already be a step ahead. Beside him, Grace stared out at the grimy cityscape, her fingers drumming a nervous rhythm on her knee. Since leaving Alexander's Lakeshore Drive penthouse, a heavy silence had enveloped her, her mind clearly a battleground of recent shocks. Her mother's hidden life, Thorne's malevolent influence, and now this clandestine rendezvous with a man who held keys to a dangerous past. "You okay?" Alexander's voice was a soft intrusion. She glanced at him, a fleeting, small nod her only reply. "Yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my head around all of this. It feels like my life was one thing yesterday, and now it's something completely different." "I know," he empathized. His own life a testament to such jarring shifts. "It's a lot to take in. But we're going to get through this. We'll get the truth, and we'll make sure Marcus pays for what he's done." A faint, humorless smile touched her lips. "I just can't believe someone like him had that kind of power over my mom, over us. It's like my whole life was built on lies." He yearned to offer reassurance, to promise a safe resolution, but the specter of Marcus Thorne forbade such easy comforts. Instead, his hand found hers, a gentle squeeze of shared resolve. "No more lies. We'll make sure of that." A sharp rap on the car window made them both jump. Jack, his presence a reassuringly solid one, leaned in. "Fisher's here," he reported, his voice a low murmur. "He's waiting inside. It looks clear, but we need to be careful. He's skittish, and we don't want to spook him." Alexander nodded, the familiar adrenaline of high stakes beginning to course through him. "Let's do this." They exited the car, Grace a determined shadow at his side, and approached the looming derelict structure of the abandoned warehouse. Its grimy windows stared like vacant eyes. Inside, the cavernous space was dimly lit, their footsteps echoing eerily on the cracked concrete. Walter Fisher stood in the center, a man in his 50s, his thinning hair and restless eyes betraying a profound unease. He looked like a cornered animal. "You're Sterling." Fisher's voice was reedy, laced with fear. "That's right." Alexander kept his own tone even, projecting a calm he didn't entirely feel. "This is my daughter, Grace." Fisher's gaze flickered towards Grace, then skittered back to Alexander. "I didn't sign up for a family reunion. What do you want from me?" "We need information," Alexander stated, stepping closer, his presence commanding. "You worked with Marcus Thorne. You know what he's done. We need the proof to bring him down." Fisher visibly flinched, his eyes darting towards the shadowed exit. "You don't know what you're asking for. Marcus, he's not someone you mess with. If he finds out I talk to you, I'm a dead man." Jack materialized beside them, his voice a firm counterpoint to Fisher's terror. "We can protect you. We've got connections. If you help us, we'll make sure you're safe. But we need that information, Walter. Without it, we can't stop him." Fisher wavered, a battle raging behind his fearful eyes. The terror of Thorne was potent, yet another emotion seemed to flicker there. Guilt, perhaps a long-suppressed desire for atonement. "You think you can stop him?" The question was a bare whisper. "We know we can," Alexander affirmed, his conviction unwavering. "But we need your help." Fisher's gaze drifted to Grace, and something in her quiet intensity, her unspoken pain, seemed to tip the scales. He drew a ragged breath. "All right," he conceded, the word heavy with resignation. "I'll help you. But you need to know what you're up against. Marcus has got his hands in everything. Business, politics, law enforcement. If you take him down, he'll take a lot of people with him." "We're prepared for that," Jack stated, his resolve absolute. "Just give us what we need." With trembling fingers, Fisher reached into his jacket, producing a small flash drive. "This is what you're looking for. It's all here. Documents, emails, financial records, everything Marcus has been doing for the last 20 years. Alexander reached for it, a surge of triumph, of imminent justice, coursing through him. This was it. Key. But before his fingers could close around the small device, a deafening crash shattered the warehouse's quiet, a door slamming open with brutal force. Everyone froze. Fisher's face contorted in abject terror, his eyes wide as he whipped towards the sound. "Oh no, he found us." Alexander's own heart hammered against his ribs as a menacing silhouette filled the doorway. Even in the dim, dusty light, the figure was unmistakable. Marcus Thorne. "You think you can betray me, Walter?" Thorne's voice, a silken snarl, dripped with icy menace. "You think I wouldn't find out?" Grace gasped, a small, choked sound, and Alexander instinctively moved to shield her, the flash drive now a burning ember in his palm. The confrontation they had so desperately sought, and simultaneously dreaded, had found them. The vast, grimy interior of the abandoned warehouse in South Chicago seemed to shrink, the air growing heavy as Marcus Thorne advanced, his presence a palpable miasma of cold, calculating power. His eyes, like chips of ice, swept over them, lingering on Alexander, then Grace, before finally fixing on the trembling form of Walter Fisher. "You're making a big mistake, Walter." Thorne's voice was a low hiss, each word laced with venom. "Did you really think you could just hand over information like that and walk away? You should have known better." Fisher stumbled back, his face a mask of chalky terror. "I didn't have a choice, Marcus. They came to me. I didn't want to do this." A dark, mirthless chuckle escaped Thorne. "Oh, but you did have a choice. And you chose wrong. I don't forgive betrayal." Alexander's fists clenched, his body tensing as he stepped resolutely between Thorne and the others. "Leave him alone, Marcus. This ends now." Thorne's chilling gaze shifted, locking with Alexander's. Years of bitter rivalry, of unspoken, seething animosity, arced between them in the charged silence. A slow, predatory smile spread across Thorne's lips, a smile that held no warmth, only a chilling amusement. "Alexander Sterling," he purred, savoring the name. "Still playing the hero, are we? After all these years, you still haven't learned how this game is played." "This isn't a game," Alexander retorted, his voice a steely whip crack. You destroyed lives, Marcus. You took Eleanor away from me, and you've been manipulating everything for years. It's over. Thorne's amusement didn't waver, though a dangerous glint entered his eyes. You don't know what you're talking about, Alexander. Eleanor was nothing more than a pawn. I did what I had to do to keep my empire intact. You were in the way. At this, Grace, who had been a silent, shocked observer, found her voice, a tremor of fury running through it. You took my mother from me. You ruined our lives. Why? Why would you do that? Thorne's eyes flicked to her, a flicker of something akin to recognition, or perhaps just cold assessment in their depths. Ah, so you're the daughter. I had heard rumors, but I didn't think it was true. Looks like Eleanor left a little legacy behind after all. You didn't answer my question, Grace pressed, her fear eclipsed by a rising tide of righteous anger. Why did you take her? What did she ever do to you? Thorne let out an exaggerated sigh, as if burdened by their naive sentimentality. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I needed leverage, and she was close enough to you and Alexander to be useful. That's all. Don't make it more sentimental than it is. The callous dismissal of Eleanor's life, of her suffering, ignited a fresh blaze of rage in Alexander. He took another step forward, his voice dropping to a low, menacing growl. You used her. You destroyed her life and mine. And now you're going to pay for it. Thorne's smile finally vanished, his features hardening into a mask of cold fury. You think you can take me down, Alexander? With what? The word of a washed-up traitor like Fisher. He gestured contemptuously at the still petrified Walter. I've been untouchable for years. I have people in my pocket that you couldn't even dream of. Alexander's fingers tightened around the flash drive, the small piece of plastic suddenly feeling immensely powerful. This time you're wrong, he stated, his conviction absolute. We have everything we need to expose you. Thorne's eyes narrowed, a dangerous glint within them as he advanced another step, his voice a venomous whisper. I've destroyed men for less, Alexander. If you think a little piece of plastic is going to take me down, you're more foolish than I thought. But before another word could be uttered, Jack Donovan stepped forward. His phone held aloft, an undeniable air of quiet triumph about him. It's over, Marcus. Jack's voice was calm, cutting through the tension. You've just confessed to everything, and I've recorded every word. For the first time, Thorne's composure wavered. His eyes widened almost imperceptibly, a flicker of disbelief, then dawning realization. He scanned the room, a trapped animal seeking an escape that wasn't there. You, he began, his voice choked with fury, but the distant, approaching wail of sirens cut him short. Jack allowed himself a small, grim smirk. I called the police before we came in. They'll be here any minute. And with this recording and the evidence we have on that flash drive, there's no escaping this. You're done. Thorne's face contorted, a mask of impotent rage, before he visibly wrestled his features back into a semblance of control. This isn't over, Sterling, he spat, his eyes burning with malice. You think you've won, but you don't understand how deep this goes. You have no idea what you're up against. Alexander met his glare, his own voice steady, unyielding. Maybe not. But I know one thing. You'll never hurt anyone again. The warehouse doors burst inward, and a phalanx of police officers streamed into the space, weapons drawn, their movements swift and practiced. They surrounded Thorne, who raised his hands in a slow, deliberate gesture of surrender, his face a maelstrom of fury and grudging acceptance. You'll pay for this, Alexander. Thorne snarled, even as the cold steel of handcuffs closed around his wrists. I'll make sure of it. Alexander watched, his heart still thundering as Thorne was led away, a nightmare finally, blessedly, ending. The man who had cast such a long, dark shadow over his life, over Eleanor's, over Grace's, was finally facing a measure of justice. He turned to Grace. She stood, her eyes wide, a fragile disbelief warring with dawning relief. Is it really over? Her voice trembled. He nodded, a profound weariness settling over him, yet beneath it a nascent sense of peace. It's over, he said softly. He can't hurt us anymore. A shuddering breath escaped her, the immense tension slowly ebbing from her frame. I didn't think we'd actually do it. We did, Alexander said, his arm instinctively going around her, pulling her into a gentle, comforting embrace. We did it together. In that shared moment, amidst the dust and shadows of the old warehouse, the crushing weight of the past began ever so slightly to lift, making way not for an ending, but for a new, uncertain, yet hopeful beginning. The days that followed Marcus Thorne's dramatic arrest were a surreal blur of screaming headlines and relentless media scrutiny. The downfall of such a titan, a man long considered untouchable, sent tremors through the gilded echelons of Chicago's business world and beyond, the public consuming every salacious detail of his intricate web of crimes with an insatiable appetite. For Alexander and Grace, it was like living in the disorienting calm at the eye of a hurricane. Back within the hushed luxury of Alexander's penthouse on Lakeshore Drive, the silence was almost deafening compared to the clamor outside. Grace often found herself by the vast windows, gazing out at the sprawling city below, the enormity of all that had transpired still a heavy weight upon her. She'd been catapulted from a life of quiet anonymity into a maelstrom of secrets, betrayals, and very real danger. Thorne was gone, yes, but the emotional shrapnel remained. Alexander, observing her quiet contemplation, would often bring her coffee, a silent offering of comfort. "You've been quiet," he remarked one afternoon, his voice gentle as he settled across from her. He saw the fatigue etched around her eyes, the lingering uncertainty, and it pained him deeply, knowing the high cost of the truth she'd sought. She sighed, the coffee cup warming her hands. "It just doesn't feel real yet, you know? I spent my whole life wondering who my father was, and then when I finally find out, it's in the middle of this huge mess. Marcus, my mom. It's all so overwhelming." "I know," he said, his own voice laced with a familiar sorrow. "I wish things had been different. I wish I had been there for you from the start. But I didn't know." Her gaze met his, searching. "Do you really think my mom was trying to protect me all these years? I thought maybe she just didn't care enough to tell me about my father. But now, I don't know what to think." He leaned forward, the old ache for Eleanor, for all that was lost, tightening his chest. "I do believe she was trying to protect you. Your mother was brave, and I think she was caught in something far bigger than she could handle. But I know she loved you. She would have done anything to keep you safe. And maybe that meant keeping you away from me, because she feared what Marcus might do." Grace's eyes dropped to the floor, a kaleidoscope of conflicting emotions playing across her face. "I just wish I could have asked her. I wish I could have had a chance to understand her." He nodded, the sentiment echoing his own profound regret. "I know. There's so much I wish I could have said to her too. But we have to hold on to the fact that in the end, she did what she thought was best for you. And now we can start over. We can move forward." She looked up then, a fragile hope flickering in the depths of her pain-filled eyes. "But what does moving forward even look like for us? You're my father, but we barely know each other. How do we even begin to have a normal life after everything that's happened?" A soft, sad smile touched his lips. "We take it one step at a time. I don't expect things to be perfect right away. We've both been through a lot. But I want to get to know you, Grace. I want to be the father I should have been from the beginning." She took another sip of coffee, his words a warm, tentative balm. The anger, the confusion, though still present, were beginning to recede, making way for a cautious willingness to embrace this unexpected, complicated connection. The lifelong dream of a father, now a reality, was still a concept she struggled to fully grasp. "Okay," she said, her voice a quiet affirmation. "I want that too." A genuine warmth, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years, spread through Alexander. The oppressive darkness that had shrouded his life since Eleanor's disappearance was, at long last, beginning to lift. The road ahead remained uncertain, fraught with the challenges of forging a new relationship from the ashes of the old, but for the first time, he felt a profound, unshakable hope. The insistent buzz of his phone on the table was an unwelcome intrusion. A glance at the screen, Jack. "I should take this," Alexander excused himself, stepping into the quiet of his office overlooking Millennium Park. "Jack, what's going on?" "I've been following up on some loose ends with Marcus's case." Jack's voice was grave. "There's something you should know." A familiar unease prickled at Alexander. He'd hoped Thorne's incarceration marked the end of the threat. "What is it?" "It seems Marcus had some offshore accounts we didn't know about, money stashed away for a rainy day. He was planning to make a run for it if things ever went south, and I think he had contingencies in place. I don't know how deep this goes yet, but we can't assume that all of Marcus's allies are out of the picture." Alexander pressed his fingers to the bridge of his nose, a weary sigh escaping him. "So there's still a threat." "There might be," Jack conceded. "We've got enough evidence to keep Marcus locked up, but some of his associates might try to finish what he started. I'm going to keep looking into it." "Thanks, Jack," Alexander said, the weariness in his own voice profound. "Keep me updated." He ended the call, leaning against the cool glass, the city lights a distant, indifferent glitter. Thorne was caged, but his venomous network might still possess a lingering sting. Vigilance was still required. Returning to the living room, he found Grace watching him, her expression questioning. "What's wrong?" she asked, her intuition sharp. He forced a reassuring smile. "Nothing we can't handle. Just a few things we need to keep an eye on." She studied him, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken passing between them, then nodded. "Okay. As long as we're in this together." "We are," Alexander affirmed, his voice resonant with a newfound conviction. "We're in this together always." The ensuing days remained a maelstrom of legal maneuverings and invasive media coverage. Alexander, flanked by his legal team, worked tirelessly to ensure the full extent of Thorne's criminal empire was laid bare. News outlets feasted on the sensational story, broadcasting Thorne's precipitous fall from grace and speculating wildly about the powerful figures inevitably caught in his downward spiral. For Alexander, it was a draining, albeit necessary, ordeal. For Grace, the sudden glare of the public spotlight was an alien and unsettling experience. Her quiet, unassuming life at the Bluebird Diner had been irrevocably swept away, replaced by a disorienting new reality where her face was recognized. Her connection to the infamous Marcus Thorne and the reclusive billionaire Alexander Sterling a subject of hushed whispers and pointed stares. She found herself retreating, struggling to reconcile her past self with this new, unsought identity. One evening, curled on the sofa in Alexander's penthouse, a news report flickered onto the screen, a segment on her mother, Eleanor. Old photographs, images Grace had never seen, filled the screen. Eleanor, vibrant, smiling, achingly alive. It was a jarring experience, seeing this phantom version of the mother she thought she knew. Alexander entered, his gaze falling on the screen, a familiar pang of loss constricting his chest. Even now, after all these years, Eleanor's image could evoke such a sharp, immediate grief. "Turn it off." Grace's voice was a low, frustrated murmur. He complied, the screen going dark, and sat beside her. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I know it's a lot to deal with." She sighed, rubbing her temples. I don't know how to handle all of this. One minute I'm working at the Bluebird Diner, living my life, and the next, I'm the daughter of a billionaire, my mom's in the news, and everyone's looking at me like I'm some kind of curiosity." His hand rested on her shoulder, a comforting weight. "I get it. I never wanted this for you. I spent years hiding from the spotlight, trying to focus on my business, but it always finds a way to creep back in. Now, with everything that's happened, it feels like it's never going to end." She leaned back, her eyes closing. "It's not just the attention. It's the fact that I never really knew her. All those stories people are telling about my mom, half of them don't even sound like the person I grew up with. It's like there's this whole other version of her that I never got to see. His own heart ached with a similar sense of loss, of unanswered questions about Eleanor's final, hidden months. Your mom was complicated, he said, his voice gentle. She had her secrets, but she was also strong. And she loved you. That much I know for sure. A long silence stretched between them before she spoke again, her voice small. Do you ever wonder what she would think of all this? I mean, if she were here, if she could see us now. A wistful smile touched his lips. I think she'd be proud of you. You're stronger than you realize, Grace. You've faced so much and you're still standing. That's something to be proud of. Her own smile was a sad, fragile echo. I just wish she were here to tell me that herself. The unspoken grief, the shared loss of Eleanor, hung in the air, a poignant, invisible thread binding father and daughter. His phone buzzed again, an insistent summons. I need to take this, he murmured, rising. As he stepped away, Grace watched him, her thoughts a turbulent sea. This new life, this new father, this sterling legacy she hadn't chosen. It was a heavy mantle. In his office, Alexander took the call. Jack, what's going on? There's something you need to know. Jack's voice was taut with urgency. I've been looking into Marcus's offshore accounts like I mentioned. We've tracked some movements, and it looks like one of his key associates, Damian Cross, is still trying to move funds out of the country. Alexander's grip on the phone tightened. So the operation isn't completely shut down yet? Exactly. Marcus may be in jail, but his network isn't dead. Cross is trying to salvage what he can, and I think he's planning something big. You need to be careful, Alexander. They're desperate, and desperate people make dangerous moves. A fresh chill traced its way down Alexander's spine. Thorne caged, but his tendrils still active. What do you suggest we do? Keep your guard up. Don't let your daughter out of your sight. Cross and the others are probably aware of what's happening, and they might come after her to get back at you. The thought of Grace in renewed danger was a visceral blow. He'd almost lost her before she was even found. I'll do whatever it takes to protect her. His voice was like tempered steel. I'll keep digging, Jack promised. But be ready for anything. He ended the call, the silence of his opulent office suddenly oppressive. He couldn't relax, not yet. The shadows of Thorne's world still lingered. Returning to Grace, he saw the question in her eyes. What is it? He sat beside her, choosing his words with care. There's more we need to talk about. We're not out of the woods yet. Grace absorbed Alexander's somber words, the phrase "not out of the woods yet," sending a fresh wave of apprehension through her. The fragile sense of peace she'd begun to cultivate fractured. Marcus Thorne arrested, yet the threat remained. It felt like a relentless, suffocating tide. What do you mean? She finally managed, her voice betraying the tremor of her unease. He met her gaze directly, his own reflecting a grim determination. Jack found out that Marcus's network isn't completely dismantled. One of his key associates, Damian Cross, is still trying to move money out of the country. And there's a chance they could try to use you as leverage against me. Her heart gave a sickening lurch. So I'm still a target. He nodded slowly, regretfully. It's possible. I don't want to scare you, but we have to be careful. I'm going to make sure Jack keeps close tabs on Cross and anyone connected to him. I won't let anything happen to you. For a fleeting moment, the sheer weight of it all, the hidden past, the dangerous present, the uncertain future, threatened to overwhelm her. Her life at the Bluebird Diner, so simple, so blessedly ordinary, seemed a distant, irretrievable dream. Now, she was enmeshed in a shadowy world of corporate espionage and criminal machinations. But then, as the initial shock subsided, a new, steely resolve began to crystallize within her. She straightened, her chin lifting. We can't just sit here and wait for something bad to happen. We need to figure out what Cross is planning and stop him before he can do anything." A flicker of pride, mixed with profound concern, softened Alexander's expression. "I admire your determination, but this is dangerous. I can't ask you to get involved in something that could put you at risk." "I'm already involved," she stated, her voice firm, unwavering. "I've been involved since the day I was born, even if I didn't know it. This isn't just about me or you. It's about my mom. I want to know the truth, and I want to stop these people from hurting anyone else." He sighed, a silent acknowledgement of her unassailable logic. She was right. This was her battle as much as his. "Okay," he conceded, his tone calm, serious. "We'll do this together. But we need to be smart. Jack is looking into Cross's activities, and we'll work with him to find out what's going on. No reckless moves." Agreed. She met his gaze, her own reflecting a newfound, unshakable purpose. "Agreed." The days that followed were a tense dance of surveillance and strategy. Jack fed them updates on Damien Cross's increasingly desperate maneuvers to spirit away Thorne's illicit fortune. It was clear Cross was a man scrambling to salvage the remnants of a crumbling empire. Working in tandem, Alexander, Grace, and Jack began to meticulously unravel the complex tapestry of Thorne's corrupt network, exposing a rot that reached into the highest echelons of power. It was slow, painstaking work, each uncovered connection another piece in a vast, dirty/sordid puzzle. One evening, after a particularly grueling day sifting through financial records and consulting with Jack, Alexander and Grace found themselves sharing a rare moment of quiet contemplation in the vast living room. The investigation's oppressive weight still lingered, yet a subtle sense of shared accomplishment, of progress made, permeated the air. Grace turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "You know, I never imagined my life would turn out like this. It's been overwhelming, to say the least." A soft chuckle escaped him. "I never imagined this either. I always hoped I'd find you one day, but I never expected it to happen like this." A genuine smile, the first he'd seen in days that truly reached her eyes, transformed her face. "I'm glad you did. Even with everything that's happened, I'm glad we found each other." A wave of profound emotion washed over Alexander. For so long, the regret of Eleanor's loss, the gnawing uncertainty of her fate, had been his constant companions. Finding Grace was like finding a living piece of Eleanor, a reason to hope, a renewed sense of purpose. "I'm glad too," he said, his voice thick with unshed tears. "I've missed so much of your life, but I'm grateful for the chance to make up for lost time." Her smile widened. "We've got plenty of time now. And I want to get to know you too, not just as the man who's been fighting all these battles, but as my father." His heart swelled. He had fought so hard, risked so much to protect her, to bring a measure of justice for Eleanor. And now, amidst the wreckage of the past, lay the extraordinary possibility of building something new, something real with his daughter. The path ahead was still fraught with challenges, the lingering threat of Thorne's associates a stark reminder that their ordeal wasn't entirely over. Yet, for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Alexander felt a lightness, a sense of profound, hopeful anticipation. The shrill buzz of his phone on the coffee table shattered the moment. Message from Jack. His breath caught. "We got him. Cross has been arrested. It's over." A long, slow exhalation. The tension that had been a knot in his shoulders for days finally began to uncoil. He showed the message to Grace. Her eyes scanned the words, and a radiant smile of pure relief illuminated her face. "It's over," Alexander repeated, the words a balm, a benediction. Disbelief warred with overwhelming gratitude. "We did it." Grace leaned back against the plush cushions, a visible weight lifting from her. "We did it," she echoed, her own smile soft, luminous. For the first time in what felt like an age, they could both truly breathe. The shadows had receded. The architects of their pain were neutralized. The future, once a terrifying unknown, now stretched before them, a landscape rich with the promise of healing, of connection, of a brighter shared tomorrow. This was not an ending, but a hard-won, precious beginning.